I'm Carlee, and I'm going to be talking about the Dramatism theory by Kenneth Burke. Kenneth Burke was a critic who believed that language and words in general are humans' way of strategically responding to any given situation. He also believed that in order to critique, you had to first discover why a writer or speaker used the words that they used. What was their motivation? And so he developed this theory of dramatism. And dramatism is what Burke saw when people communicated with their words. And it's made up of 3 perspectives, and each of these perspectives is just a way to try and figure out the motivation behind the words that were used. The first is identification, and that simply means the term identification is just a common ground between 2 people, in this case a speaker and a listener. And Burke uses the term substance just kind of as an overall term to describe a person's physical characteristics, their occupation, their personality, attitude, beliefs, and it's when 2 substances overlap that common ground is found and you can form identification. And we see this all the time in conversations we have every day. When we're talking to someone, we gravitate more towards the things that we have in common with them. And if we don't have anything in common with them, then the conversation's not going to last very long. And when we're listening to a speaker, if we can relate to what they're talking about, we're more apt to listen and be interested and even be persuaded. And this is exactly what Burke says. He says that without identification, there is no persuasion. Because if you can't get your audience to relate to you, then they probably won't listen to you at all. And so he encourages speakers to alter their speech or choose words that will specifically relate to the audience that's listening to them so that they'll be more persuaded. The second perspective is the dramatistic pentat, and this is just a tool that Burke uses to analyze a speaker's methods of persuasion, how they attempt to get their audience to believe them. And he'll take a persuasive message and break it down to find specific words using 5 key elements of human drama, which are act, scene, agent, agency, and purpose. And these 5 elements just answer the questions who, what, where, when, why, how. In a persuasive message, usually there's a verb which describes the act, what happened, what was done, and then also there's some sort of description about the background of the act, when, where, and then there's the agent, which is the subject, the character, the who. And then there's also the agency, which is just the means through which the agent acted, basically the how. And then there's the purpose, which is the goal, or the why. And Burke takes these and picks out the specific words and uses those words to try and figure out the speaker's motivation. All 5 elements could be used, or just 2 or 3, but it's things like that that help us decide or discover what the motive was. Then the third perspective is the guilt redemption cycle. Burke believes that the ultimate motivation of any and all public speaking is to purge guilt. And by guilt, he doesn't mean that you've done something wrong and you're guilty. Burke uses guilt as an umbrella term for all things that are tension and embarrassment and anxiety, shame, anything that makes us uncomfortable. And we've just talked about with cognitive dissonance how we want to avoid things that make us uncomfortable, get rid of things that make us uncomfortable. So in a way, Burke was right. We do want to purge all this guilt. And we do that through 2 methods. One is self-blame, which is just mortification, confessing your sins and asking for forgiveness and taking all the blame yourself. But most of the time, we do it through victimage, which is scapegoating. And Burke says that scapegoating is the ultimate plot of all human drama, that we are always looking for some external enemy to blame all of our problems on. And this leads us back to identification, because if one thing unites people, it is a common enemy. Because if you want to find a common ground with somebody, you develop a common enemy. And so we've seen this throughout history, all throughout history, that people unite for a common enemy, and that is one thing that will bring them together and perk their interest and persuade them. And so that is the gist of dramatism. Thanks.